We did have a special presentation this evening prior to that, and if I may introduce that, I had the opportunity to attend the Historical Society's presentation of our forefathers, the tour around the village green. That was held about two weeks ago, I believe, and they had a representative of the first attorney in the city, the first school teacher. There was actually a little bank robbery that took place at Farmers Bank, and all of these were factual activities taken from articles from the Dispatch. And I'll tell you, if any of you have attended it or didn't attend it, you missed out on an extremely exciting evening. It was very well done. All of the speakers were absolutely fantastic, in my opinion. And I had asked Susie McKay, who's the president of the Historical Society, if she could bring along with her this evening one of those speakers who was, I believe, the first superintendent of the city of Canfield. And it sort of generalized everything that went on at the time. So, Sue, if I can give you the floor, please.
Sure. So, well, I'd like to thank Joe for the opportunity for being here. Those of you who don't know, the Historical Society owns two buildings in Canfield. We have the Bond House across from the library, where we house our collection. We have the Mahoney Dispatch building. Of course, you know that was run by 3 generations of the Fowler family, and it was willed to the society by Ralph Fowler in 1991. We have 3 public programs. Our History Day with the 3rd graders in the spring, and we worked several years ago to put that program together with the 3rd grade teachers because it meets their ODE standards. We also have a lecture series at the Bond House 5 times a year. Our next lecture is November 9th at 7 o'clock. The history of Lane Funeral Homes will be the subject. That is a centennial family business. And finally, we just completed our Step Back in Time History Walk. That will continue to be an annual fall event for the town. One of our actors from the walk is here. So I'd like to introduce Nick Nelson. He is a junior at Southeast High School. That's where I teach. Nick is reciting a speech by the Honorable Charles Phileas. The speech is an excerpt from an article that Mr. Phileas wrote on the occasion of the 30th anniversary of the Mahoney Dispatch newspaper. That was in 1907. Mr. Phileas?
Greetings. I'm glad to make your acquaintance this fine day. I understand you wish to inquire of my early Canfield memories. Well, in June of 1875, my college career came to an end, and there was necessity laid upon me to do something. Learning that there was likely to be a vacancy in the superintendency of Canfield schools, I made my first visit here in June of that year. It struck me then as a quaint old town. On my journey from the hotel from the station, I had the experience, which I afterwards learned was quite common to newcomers, of being greeted by an unearthly sort of noise from a barefoot, queer-acting individual whom I afterwards learned was Rupright. Upon my arrival, I put up at the Bosbrook Hotel, which looked much then as it did 20 years later. The room that was given to me seemed to partake in the general appearance of the character of the landlord and the building proper. It ought to have been condemned for being unsanitary. And the bed I was given, well, precluded the possibility of a good night's sleep. Needless to say, subsequent nights were spent at a different hotel in town. The next day I took in the town. Its broad street with interlying parks made quite an impression upon me. These parks did not even subserve the ordinary uses of a park, save they made possible the fresh air for its inhabitants. And as I now remember, they were only mowed once a year for the grass that grew upon them. I met on this occasion the members of the Board of Education and the Village Board of Examiners. I do not now recall the names of the members, save for 2, Judson Canfield and Dr. Truesdale. The Village Board of Examiners was made up of the 3 ministers of the 3 leading churches in town, the Methodist, Presbyterian, and the Congregational. You see, back then there was not much separation of church and state, so if one wished to fill in as a superintendent, one must also pass muster with the church leaders as well. I afterwards came to know Father Guy, Reverend Peterson, and Reverend Irwin very well. They were all most excellent men, but of the old-fashioned type. Father Guy was an especially kindly man, and I have of him very affectionate memories, but I well remember him directing to his audience the terrors of hell by depicting to them in very plain and vigorous language the streams of molten lava in which a sinner would meet his final doom. And Reverend Erlin was equally sure that he who indulged in playing cards, those instruments of Satan, was in danger of eternal punishment. My employment as superintendent of schools followed shortly after my first visit. The new Union School, the first graded school in Canfield, having been built only a few years prior, was my charge. At that time, 10 district one-room schoolhouses still served the township. As I speak to you now, I am reminded of the many changes that have occurred here these past 30 years. In those days, we knew nothing at all about an electric streetcar, a phonograph. Indeed, we knew scarcely nothing at all about the various uses to which electricity is applied today. For example, we knew nothing at all about incandescent electric lighting or electric motors. One thing has remained constant, however. I was impressed then, as I continue to be, with the inhabitants of this village. It seemed to me then, as it seems now, that the people of this village were remarkable for their intelligence, their character, and their goodness. Well, my, the time has gone by. I must bid you good day, fellow citizens. I have enjoyed our brief meeting. Have a good evening.
Very good. You step back to the podium.
Oh, of course.
That is Jim. Two of the original members that were trustees, the founding members, are with us tonight. Jim Sable and Barb Todd. Good to have you here.
This is Jim. Barbara was not able to make it.
Oh, okay. We have a proclamation for you tonight. Whereas the Canfield Historical Society was founded by Joanne Green and Barb Masters in the early 1970s to preserve the heritage of Canfield, and whereas in the early years there were only a handful of members by word of mouth and their enthusiasm spread, and whereas the Historical Society's first meeting took place at the Reuben Macmillan Library on West Main Street, and whereas membership grew, the Historical Society sought a permanent home by having an annual fundraiser called Market on the Green until 1995. Whereas the Canfield Historical Society bought the Bond House in 1987, which is still the meeting place for the Historical Society, and whereas the current president, Susie McCabe, has been the driving force the past 8 years to bring new members and to engage in the community by holding events such as the History Walk, and whereas the mayor and the city of Canfield offer their support to their appreciation to the Historical Society for the dedication and hard work in maintaining the city's rich history for all the current and future residents to enjoy. Now therefore, I, Bernard J. Kosar Sr., Mayor of Canfield, State of Ohio, do hereby declare Wednesday, October the 18th, 2017 as Canfield Historical Society Day. I would ask that you accept this. Of course. Along with, for the society, key to the city. It unlocks every lock of the city except my home.